guys, thank you for joining me in this third session on preventing burnout. Today I just want to share with you just a really lovely memory that I have of church. So a year or so ago, I can't remember how long anymore, I was having a really rough time. And anyway, at one of the potluck lunches at church, one of the guys said to me, how are you going? And you know, often we do the whole, yeah, I'm good, how are you going? And then we move on to other things. But at that season in my life, God was really challenging me about vulnerability, about being really honest about how I'm going. And of course, you know, you do that at a level that's appropriate for who you're talking to and the context and all of that. But I kind of felt convicted in that moment to not do the normal thing, but to just be really honest in a way that made sense in that context. So I said to this guy and two other people who were with us at the time, I'm really struggling. I feel exhausted and I'm a bit angry at God, you know, about a couple of things, and I'd really like prayer for that. And one, it just felt really nice to just share that. It just felt real. But the other thing was that before I left church that day, one of the ladies who was with us in that conversation came up to me and she said to me, Esther, thank you for sharing how you're going. I would have had no idea that was going on for you, but now that I know how I can be praying for you. And it just filled my heart with this warmth. I felt so loved and I felt so cared for. And it was a season where academically I knew that I was loved, but honestly I was just feeling like I was giving and giving and giving and that there just wasn't much input. It's just how I felt. So I wasn't feeling very loved. And so when this person said to me, thank you, now I know how I can pray for you, it was like this beautiful reminder from God that I am loved and that people want to care for me, that I'm not a burden if I reach out. And I guess all of that just to say, I think we can I don't think I'm the only one who sometimes can get so caught up in the just day-to-day life and day-to-day ministry and everything else that we forget that that we have needs, that there are real things going on for us, and that we need people, we need community. And people won't be able to care for us in some of the ways we need if we don't reach out, if we're not open to being vulnerable. And like I said before, right, our level of vulnerability, what we share, what we don't share, depends on who we're talking to, the context, a whole bunch of things. But for me, it's been so good to be challenged. Because my whole life, people have always thought I was an open book. Because, you know, I just say what's on my mind. There's a lot of things I am so happy to be open about. But I don't know if a lot of people notice this, but when it comes to struggles I'm having right now, or insecurities, or fears, or whatever's going on for me right now, I won't really dwell into that very much. And I think there's this fear of being vulnerable. When we're vulnerable with people, we don't always know how they're going to respond. There's just all these fears around it, aren't there? Like, I have a lot of fears around being vulnerable still. But it was so nice to know that when we challenge ourselves, when we're open with people, when we're honest and real and raw, we get to be a church. We get to be the church, like in general, not just our church, but every church. When we're honest and real with each other, we get to love each other better. And the thing is, I think as people who might give a lot, realizing that it's okay for people to give and to pour into us, to fill our tank, to input into us. We need that. And I think when we forget that, it's not helpful, it's not healthy. And for me, like, if we're not feeling loved, it's really hard to love others. I mean, really, obviously goes without saying, God is the one we give all our struggles and every burdens to, and he's the one that fills us up. But he also gave us people in our lives, our church, our friends, our family, to walk with us in our life. And I just want to challenge you and myself again and again with vulnerability. I want us to be the kind of people that are okay with putting ourselves out there and saying, yeah, this is how I'm going. If you're going great, fantastic. If you're not, we just say, well, you know, we're not going so great and I'd love some prayer. It's a hard thing to do. And I think sometimes we don't want to feel like we're whingy, or we don't want to feel like, oh, you know, or we feel like, oh, there's so many other people going through so much more, and all these things, you know, I guess are the balancing statements. But I think we often flip it too much that way. And sharing our struggles with people, being open with people, that helps us find longevity in our ministry, and it helps us find joy in life, because we need each other. We really do. And I just want to say, like, for me, something that's been really helpful in my journey with vulnerability has been engaging with some of Brene Brown's stuff. She does TED Talks, she wrote some books. I borrowed a book from Judy that just really helped me kind of be more challenged about being more vulnerable. And so I guess our big question for today is simply this. What would it look like to be more vulnerable, to be more open? Because we need it. We need each other. And you know what? We don't really help people in loving us if we're not open with people in a really real way. So I want to encourage you, if you have fears around vulnerability, one, that is so normal. But two, I'd encourage you to pray into those fears, because we need some level of vulnerability. We really do. And for me, I think I noticed that, you know, God's been really good. Like, I've had lots of friends in life, and God has been so good in that, because I moved schools a lot when I was in primary school, but it just, you know, it was easy to make friends. But what I realized is it's never been easy to make deep connections though. And I think that's because even if people open up to me, I've always been scared to open up to them. It's always been something I haven't wanted to do. Part of it's my personality. I think in general, I'm a happy person, and so there's not always a lot going on in, I guess, that I'm finding hard or struggling with. But that's changed a little bit. And sometimes I don't like emotions that aren't nice, fun emotions. But realizing that sometimes you do have to acknowledge those emotions, and you do need to share them, and you do need people speaking into those things and letting people love you. It's been a really good journey. And I have to say that I think in terms of the whole preventing burnout thing, if we're not being vulnerable with people and letting them speak into our lives and loving us well, I think we really put ourselves in an unhealthy and unhelpful space for burnout, amongst other things. Anyway, so I'll chuck up some questions for you to reflect on, the things I'm reflecting on always, or trying to reflect on. But yeah, until next time, see ya.